Hi, I'm Amy Rodman. Welcome to Igniting Creativity. We have been talking to virtual teachers, and it has been so much fun learning what each teacher does, different strategies, what age group and subject matter that they teach, and just really figure out how we can be the best teachers and use some tips and tricks that everybody has been giving us along the way. This episode is with Alex McCarty, and she is a teacher of younger children, and boy, can you tell that she has the right personality for that. So stay tuned for lots of tips and tricks about how she manages her classroom. Hi, Alex. It's so nice to meet you. So nice to have you on the podcast. This is Alex McCarty. Can you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about what you do as a virtual teacher and even beyond that.
Sure. First of all, thanks so much for having me today. And I teach on OutSchool primarily. On OutSchool, I teach a variety of topics, STEAM, art, drawing, I guess that's art, social studies, and then just some classes that are for fun. And then outside of that, I also do a little bit of teaching. I'm a STEAM teacher for a company called Snapology. That's like a Lego-based STEAM company. I did that a lot more before the pandemic. That one's kind of on the back burner right now. And then I also teach at a local micro school, which is like a little school for homeschoolers that they go to twice a week. So I teach science there. And then I also teach art at a local art institute. So
Oh, wow. So like
juggling all the things.
Is the
Pardon me?
Is the art institute college age students?
Oh, no, sorry. Yeah, it is a child-based art institute. Yeah. Or all ages.
Okay.
It's an all ages. Yeah.
Okay. So your age group, your primary age group are the younger children, correct?
Yes. On OutSchool, I teach primarily 4 to 7 or 8, I would say.
Okay. So tell me about your experience with that, because we both have the art thing in common. And I mean, I taught in a K through 12 school for years and years. And so just to kind of ease my way into it, I started with the older kids thinking, okay, they're going to know how to use the technology. But I'm finding now everybody knows how to use the technology. It doesn't matter if they're preschoolers or not. So what was your experience starting with such young kids?
So first of all, I think that I just really enjoy that age group because they're so open to basically anything that you ask them to do. They are just there and they are ready and they don't have any preconceived notions about how it's supposed to look or anything. I would say the hardest thing for them is sometimes they're a little hard on themselves if something's not going exactly right for them. But
Right.
I like that it's really that you can jump in and go. I try to keep it fairly simple because a lot of times children will show up not necessarily with all of the things that I hoped that they would have. So you have to be very flexible
Very
and
flexible, yes.
very on the fly with them, and a lot of reassuring that it's okay. Whatever they have, we're going to make it work.
Right.
So, sometimes I'll have 3 different things going on my screen at the same time. Like, here's the main project in the ideal world, the way I intended it.
Right.
Here's the one for those of you who didn't have this, we're going to do this up here. And then for those of you who are doing it this way, we'll do that over here. So, it's just, I think the thing about that age is you just have to be ready to kind of meet them where they are and just go with the flow. And in the end, as long as you do that and you keep a great attitude, they're having fun. I mean, I'm not trying to turn out like Picasso here. I'm just trying to create a really like warm, welcoming, creative environment for kids to come and just enjoy being together and making something. So,
Oh my gosh, yes,
yeah.
I feel the same way. And I don't ever want them to feel like it has to look like a certain thing. And we talk about this quite often. Kids will say something about yours looks so good. And I remind them how much older I am than them.
Yes.
And I talk to them about my experience growing as an artist and where I was at their level, and how they're right where they need to be. So yeah, that's the kind of attitude and environment that you need to bring to them.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So supply wise, you saying that they don't always come with what they need. I have kept mine as minimal as possible, and that happens occasionally, but honestly, I've been really pleased with how prepared they show up. I also run more ongoing classes where I see most of the same kids every week. There's definitely new ones in and out. But whenever I was doing more one-time classes, that's whenever you're meeting kids, it's like you have no idea what the dynamic of the class is going to be because they're all new for the most part. I mean, there's re-enrollments too, but it's just a new mix of kids every time. And then you don't know what they're showing up with and just getting set up and how well they know the platform or the technology. So what kind of classes do you mostly run? And, how have you found all of that? Like, how have you navigated all of that?
Sure, yeah. So I know that when we were sort of at the height of things being all online, a lot of teachers were having their biggest success, it seems to me, with one-time classes.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really teach that many one-time classes, and I think it's just for the reasons that you said, is because I really like to build a relationship and a rapport with kids over a series of meetings. And also for me, like, I can be very flexible, but I also don't want that child to only have one experience with me where they came in and they didn't have what they needed to have and it was kind of a fluster, and I can get them through all of that, but it's just so sad when at the end of that, like, that's the end for them. So for me, I've always focused on either multi-day or ongoing, and right now it is definitely ongoing for me as well. And so just like you said, you kind of start to get a rhythm with those students. Their
Right.
first time in, they might be like, oh, what's all this? But I'll simply explain to them, like, you know what, if you stick around, if you're going to be back next week, it's going to get easier and easier. You're going to know just what to do. It'll all start to make sense to you. So yeah, I think that I just really like that building of relationship and expectations over a series of classes. And I actually feel like for me, the retention of students then is higher because by the end of the class, we're like, we're all best friends. So
I know.
they want to hang out with their best friends some more. Yeah.
I had a multi-day class that I ran last school year, and it was 5 weeks, and we actually stretched it into 6 weeks. Like, this was a preteen age class, and they were doing so well, but they were putting so much effort into things. It was running a little slower than I had anticipated. And I said, you know what, if you can meet the following week at the same time, let's just continue it and kind of wrap things up a little bit better. And those kids were so sad to leave because
Aww.
they had such good conversations with each other. They got to know each other so well in that, a month and a half. It's not that long, but just getting to know the kids as the teacher, allowing those kids to get to know each other, like, they became friends. They really enjoyed their company. So the ongoing classes, I don't know about you, but I run them from September to May. And so it's like they could just go on forever. And the reason that I had paused in the summer was because I couldn't consistently keep those up every week because of other in-person camps and things I was teaching. But I mean, they could just go on forever and ever. And those students,
they never want to leave.
I know, they become part of the family in a way,
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. And I have people also ask me, well, you're online, you don't actually know them, or, they make comments to that degree. And I totally disagree. And it sounds like you do as well.
Definitely. Oh my gosh. So some of my students, I teach this one ongoing class, and it's been going since not this past August, but the previous August. And it's a dinosaur club. So each week we meet and we learn about a new featured dinosaur of the week. And I'm not lying when I tell you that there are students who have been in that class all the way along, and we've cycled back, right? So what I did was I kind of did like a, fall through spring series. And then I switched up the format for summer, and I said we were doing like a summer series. And that way, and I allowed parents all the flexibility that they needed if they needed to skip weeks or whatever. Like, I was very open with refunds, just because, at this point, they're my family. They've been with me all year. And of course, some kids come in and out, but there are some who just truck along through the whole thing. And then we started up again this fall, and I let them all know, I'm just letting you know that we're going to go back to the old format, and we're going to go back to, the beginning. I'm going to cycle through again. If you don't want to do that, I have these I created some other kind of dinosaur themed fun classes because I thought, well, they'll just want to get together and have some dinosaur fun. But don't you know that there are some kids that were like, we'll just do it again.
Okay.
It's fun.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay. So yeah, I
know.
mean, and then when they leave, when a student leaves, you know, because whatever, they go back to school, or I had a
Mhm.
lot of that this fall, and you don't know that they're going to leave. You just get that message that they're leaving.
Right.
It's like heartbreaking because you feel
I
like,
know. It's like, I didn't
but
get to say
I
goodbye.
love you.
I
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, when you say fun classes, what would you say you do during those classes? It's less academic, I would assume, but you're still covering material.
Definitely. Everything I do has an element of like educational aspect to it. But sometimes it's just a lot more hidden or more relaxed. So, you know, in the dinosaur club I'm referring to, it's called the Dinosaur Collectors Club. In that class, it's a little more structured. We start out at the beginning with some sharing. Those kids could go on with sharing for the whole class, is what I've noticed. And
Yeah.
then after sharing, we usually do some kind of movement activity just to kind of like transition them into the educational part, just to, you know, because at that point they've all been so patient listening to each other and having it not be their turn. So that kind of like
Yeah.
brings them all together and like engages them for a minute. And then we move into the educational material after that, which is a lot of me asking them for their observations and then kind of following up, you know, with facts or whatever that kind of support those observations, and then an interactive part where we have a field guide, and we all complete entries in our field guide together through, again, some
Oh,
question
I
and
love
answer.
that.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it really is a lot. It's got the sharing, the you know, gross motor, then a little bit of like conversational learning, and then a hands-on activity at the end to kind of wrap it all up. So I feel like
Mhm.
these kids go on a real journey in that class,
They
and
do.
sometimes
Yeah.
they don't ever want to leave. I know that there are a lot of teachers out there who are like, I could never have a class for more than 25 minutes in this age group. Let me tell you, this age group, if you have got them engaged, literally never want to leave. I
I
mean,
know.
there'll be sometimes at the hour mark where I'm like, you guys, we're like 20 minutes over. We gotta go. Like, I'm so
Mhm.
sorry. I have to teach another class. I love you all. I gotta get out of here. So
Right.
that's the
I've
format
had
for that.
that.
It's
Just
more,
yesterday, I had a student that had a stick bug as a pet, and it was super cool. And so he was showing that off, and I'm like, it's really time for me to go. And he's like, I don't have any other classes today. It was
oh my
actually his
gosh.
morning, and it was me at 5 p.m. So that's the other cool thing is when you're
Yes.
virtual, you're teaching from all over the world. And he's letting this insect crawl up his drawing, and it was sticking to that smooth surface. It was just really cool to see. And of course they love to share, but they're just like, it's okay, we're
We'll
good,
stay.
we can stay. So because you have the younger kids, and I find it's harder to log off with the younger kids, they do want to stay, or they just like, they don't want to be the one to press that button. So
Right.
what is your tactic to actually log off?
That is a great question. So I do teach some different types of classes. So we do always have a goodbye moment. Usually I'll kind of wind them down. I'll start saying something, well, first of all, I'll start saying things like, guys, I really have to go. So there's that in some groups. But in most groups, if we're being, if we're doing that the right way and not the we've gone 15 minutes over way, I'll just start kind of prepping them by saying like, okay, does anybody have anything else that they want to say, share, or ask? Let's all go around and make sure that everybody raise your hand if you have anything else that you want to say, share, or ask before we say goodbye. And that kind of starts to clue them in like, this is it. This is the last moment, which
Right.
of course
Gotta get
they
it in.
still want to go on forever. But then I'll just simply say like, okay, you know what? That's all that we have time for today. And usually they understand if you tell them you have another class, like I have to go teach dinosaurs now. But then we always do something fun. So like in my dinosaur classes, I will typically ask them, and I don't even remember how this started, but I'll pretend to be the dinosaur that we were learning about that day. And then they have the option of pretending to be whatever dinosaur they want to be. And their
Oh,
job is to
cool.
attack me, or they
Oh,
can use their toy dinosaurs and they can like bring up their dinosaurs and attack me. And I'll run away as that dinosaur. So that's it. And then and then I say goodbye to all their names, and then I just push push the button and like pull off the Band-Aid and we're out.
Right.
So
That's a good way to put it. Pull off the Band-Aid. I had
yes.
one group that we instituted a double hand wave because nobody wanted to press the button and say goodbye. You know, they didn't want to be the first one. And I said, okay, this is what we'll do. We'll just count down and we'll double wave to each other. And then as you're waving, then I'll click. And so they would go 3, 2, 1, and they would wave and we'd all say bye. And then we would just exit all
That's
together.
super cute too.
So that worked really well because 3 of them in that class actually knew each other and lived close by, but it was during the time when they couldn't actually visit each other.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was their get together time. And they didn't want to leave each other. And the other students all became part of their group too, you know, so that's always fun when they know each other. But so because this is such a young age group, I'm sure you have tons of stories of just like really fun or funny things that have happened. So one of my questions for you is, what is like the funniest, worst, best experience with this age group?
I know I was trying to think about that a lot last night. And it's funny because I come downstairs all the time and like, you know, word vomit on my family about like this hilarious thing that just happened, or, oh my gosh, these kids or whatever. And it's so hard, like in the moment, I know there's hilarious stuff happening all the time,
right?
But it's hard to like pick out one moment. But then this morning I did remember one. And usually the funniest moments that happen in class are my fault, because it's usually that a student is saying something, and because my old ears just sometimes malfunction, or whatever the delay is or whatever, sometimes I have to ask them, I just cannot understand what they're saying. So I'll just be like, I'm so sorry. Like, could you just say that one more time as slowly as you can so that Miss Alex can hear it? And sometimes by the end, I'll be trying to repeat what they're saying. So just last week, one of my students was telling me about some elves that had moved into her home. This is in my fairy class. And so elves are a big topic in all the classes right now, but particularly in fairy class, at least it's semi on topic.
Right.
So she was letting us know about these 2 elves that had just moved into her house, and she was trying to tell me their names, and their names are Tinsel and Topper. Both of those start with a T. I could not hear that word topper to save my life. First, I was like, oh my, and I always try to repeat what they're saying as just a way of kind of giving them feedback to let them know that I hear you, you know, we're in a conversation. So I'm just repeating and being excited, like, oh my gosh, that's so exciting. Copper is such a cute name for an elf. And she was like, it's not Copper, it's Topper. But I was like, yeah, Copper. And she was like, no, it's Topper. And I was like, oh, Hopper? She was like, no, it's Topper. And I was like, well, finally I realized she's saying Topper. And now I was like, oh, now this is a game. So then I just tried to think of as many things as I could to rhyme with,
make it fun,
not getting it to Topper. So by the end, it was just tears. Like, we were all cracking up. It was so fun. And those are those moments where I just think to myself, oh my God, this is my life. I'm just sitting here with these incredible, like, full of light young people, and they are like, it's real. They're really with me and I'm really with them, and we're all having this like super real moment, and it's just delightful. Like, what a world.
I know. Like, laughter is such good medicine for your heart. Where I saw some sort of statistic about how good laughing is for your heart. So there you go. You're doing this for your heart health.
Yes, that's right. It's practically exercise, right?
Right. No, the language barrier every once in a while catches me, you know, or one of my students has a pretty heavy accent along with 2 missing front teeth right now, you know. So,
yes, that's part of the issue for sure.
So it's not their fault, but you know, it's hard sometimes. But with the younger students, I did find that parents generally tend to be kind of floating in the background, and every once in a while we'll just be like, come over and say something, you know, to help out.
Yes, thank goodness. Sometimes I will actually say to them, because I know they're right off screen, I'll say, I'm really sorry. I need a little bit of help here. Like, I am not.
They can't always type in the chat. The older kids will type something in the chat real fast or real
Yes.
easily. And I've had some students, because we have an age range. So let's say I have a 5-year-old and an 8-year-old in the class. The 8-year-old might be able to type something and they'll be like, well, just type it. And the 5-year-old is just like looking like,
Like, is
no.
that even a thing? Yes.
Right. So, there's different ways of going about it. Do you have parents that sit most of the time with your students, or are they just kind of getting more and more independent because they've been with you for so long?
Yeah, it certainly depends. I have some parents who really like to be right there, and I think it depends on the temperament of the learner. When they're first starting out with me, I actually send a message out to the parents encouraging them to stay close by,
Mhm.
because I think that especially as they're getting to meet, I'm a new grown-up for them. It's going to be all new rhythms, all new experiences, a new way of asking things and saying things. So I like to make sure, if at all possible, that there's a grown-up nearby that can kind of help out, or just give them that emotional support that they need, of knowing that there's a grown-up that they know and trust, like right there with them.
Right.
And I
Yeah.
find that those kids are the ones who have the best experience long term, because even though that grown up might over time kind of learn, like, okay, my kid's good now, and they just go do their thing. In the
Yeah.
beginning, it really sets that student up for success in this age group. Obviously,
Oh
older
my goodness.
age groups, it's
Yeah.
not that. But I don't actually. So sometimes, though, students show up just on their own and they've never met me before. And I do say it's definitely more of a struggle for those
Okay.
kids at
Yeah.
first. I'm
I
very
could see that.
welcoming. We always do the best, but I do feel like it takes them a little bit longer to kind of settle in and feel confident, and know what they're doing. Not that they're not having fun, because thankfully we switch up the activities all the time to make sure there's at least one or two things that doesn't matter if there's any, like, you'll be okay.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
yeah, in this age group, there is typically a parent somewhere in the vicinity, even just for something as simple as using the mute buttons, which I do utilize in my classes. So,
Okay. Yeah. I
so we have to
find
do a lot of training for that. And I love
Mhm.
having a parent nearby to kind of help out with that training at first.
I find that it's not so much that I need to mute because of the student, it's the background noise.
That's me. I'm very open about the fact that I have ADHD and some processing disorders. And so for me, I can't imagine for them. I'm sure many of my students have the same thing, sensitivities. I know
Mhm.
on my end, if there's all that background noise going, or students all trying to talk at the same, if it's too chaotic for me, and it's hard for me to kind of like focus on what I'm doing and feel calm. So for me to get through my day, it's just better for me if and the kids don't care, as long as you set it up as being like a thing that's happening, and you make sure to let them know how they can communicate with you. We always like practice raising our hands at the beginning.
Mhm.
We practice the mute button. Like, we practice the nonverbal ways that we can communicate to let me know that they've got something
Right.
that they need to say, and making sure that they can unmute when I prompt them to. They all just sort of, it's just like maths or anything else difficult that we ask of our kids. Like, at
Mhm.
first it's awkward, and then we're just doing it. It's just normal.
It's
So
your classroom management and your routine. And so they respect that whenever
yeah,
you've taught it. And you saying that you practice it and you're going over this is how it goes. That's an expectation that they know that you have. And so
yeah,
I think that students, when they have those expectations or guidelines, they really do respect that, and they understand that that's just the way this is going to flow so well. So when you have a new student, sometimes it just takes a little bit of time for them to understand how your classes run. But the same as whenever we're teaching in person,
yeah.
I'm an artist in residence, where I go into schools twice a week, and it's through our local museum, but I teach in a classroom that I'm being hosted by a teacher. I've been asked to come and do a special project, and you're in someone else's space. They have their routines. And me as a teacher, I have to kind of get in the groove of what they're doing, because it's different than what I would have done in my own classroom. And so I think, we all are adaptable. We all can change as adults, as kids, and we see what works and what doesn't work, and then we make it happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what about just to kind of wrap it up, what is one strategy you use to create those authentic connections? We talked about relationship building and how we see these students over and over. So what do you think has really helped you build that rapport with them?
So I think first of all, just as I said, sort of meeting each student as an individual, but and also as a group. So like you said, setting up those expectations at the beginning of the class so we're kind of all on the same page, and then giving them sort of an overview of what they can expect during the class. Sometimes I keep some surprises. They're always trying to like give away the surprises, but I think for them that helps to build the suspense a little bit too and make them feel like, ooh, we're going to find out together.
Uh-huh.
I think staying, obviously staying really upbeat, but at the same time, I know that each child, especially in this age group, has a different temperament. Some kids are not ready to they're not all in, they're not sure if they want to be there yet. They're not sure if they want to share. They're obviously there for a reason. It could be that the parents thought, this is something my kid really loves and I want to give them this experience, but the child isn't sure, yes, they love fairies or, magical creatures or dinosaurs, but they're not sure if they want to talk about them on a screen with a human yet. So I just try, first of all, to let each of them go at their own pace. I keep it very comfortable. If you're not ready to share, I'll just simply say, it's okay. You don't have to share yet. Would it be better if I don't pop you? Because usually I pop them up onto speaker view or presenter,
Yeah,
when it's their turn. Would it
they
make
love
you feel
that.
better if I, keep your thing small? We usually try to way to kind of ease them into that until they're more comfortable. So I think, first of all, I try to make it a safe space, a welcoming space. I do encourage that parental presence. I think that really helps them to feel like they're in a safe space where they're more ready to be themselves. And then I think after that, it's just being yourself, just relaxing, smiling, letting each of those kids' personalities shine through. Are they going to interrupt you 52,000 times to tell you, about the turtle that's sitting next to them, or what they see out their window, or if they hear thunder and they're worried about that? Yes, they are. I just have to let them do it. It's I remind them okay, we have to stay on track. We've got some things that we have to do today, but in the mix of that, just letting them have a moment to be themselves with you and to not always be super focused on my agenda. So the agenda's there, but the more important thing is that connection and letting each of those kids kind of I don't know, make it, they're in my space, but it's their space too. So I have to kind of let there be sort of a flow. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Because you can teach the exact same class over and over and over. I mean, so I have one particular one-time class that is the one that I teach the most. It is different every single time, and it's because of what students are there and how they interact and what they bring to the table. So you're right. It is just as much their space.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a really good answer, very thorough, to just kind of figure out what is each child about, and what are they bringing to us and to the group, and how can they share? So, yeah. Well, thank you so much, Alex. This was such a great conversation. I loved that you were able to show that this is a truly authentic way to interact, teach. I mean, it's a great career. I feel I love
it.
I love how I've met so many different kids, and just so many different experiences that I couldn't be happier doing it. So I always love whenever I can share that with somebody else, and somebody else is now sharing it with us. And, we just see the different perspectives that all of us teachers have.
I totally agree. I feel really fortunate to have found this platform right when I did. It's just been an amazing learning experience, something that I've never imagined myself doing something like this. And I just sort of jumped in with both feet, and here we are today. It's super cool.
Right. Yeah. As a hands-on type of teacher, I never, ever sat down in the classroom. So to think that I could teach this way really effectively, and, I have other people ask, well, how does that even work? That's what is amazing. We've made it work. And
we figured it out. Yep.
Yeah.
That's right.
All right. Well, thank you so much. It was great talking to you.
Thank you, Amy.
Thanks so much for listening. I know I took away a lot of gems from her. She really just laid it out there, what works with her students, what are good tips about classroom management, creating that safe environment, just letting them be creative, letting them be the kids that they should be at that age. And honestly, I just can truly see that Alex loves what she does. So I really appreciate her taking the time to talk to us, and I hope you learned something from her.